Hello all, welcome to our live session to end the week. We thought we'd try this one out and we'd try it a couple of times a month really, and doing it on a Friday, just a quick recap, what's gone on over the week and what to look out for in the week ahead really for next week. So just a quick one, just to assume that you can hear what I'm saying. Can someone just confirm that the sound is okay? I think we had a few issues a few weeks ago, but hopefully it's working okay now if someone could confirm that. And while you're doing that, I'll just go through the risk warning. So it's important to understand this presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones, that's me, and Capital.com accept no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. Spread bets and CFDs are complex instruments and come with a high risk of losing money rapidly due to leverage. 75% of retail investor accounts lose money when spread betting and or trading CFDs. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets and CFDs work and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing money. So that's the risk warning done. I thought what we do this evening, we'll have a quick look at what's happening next week, the major events on the calendar for next week, and then look back at markets for this week. So we'll take a look at the usual major markets. So we'll look at stock markets, gold, silver, oil, Bitcoin, and some currency markets, because I think there are some interesting things happening with all of these markets. So we'll talk a bit about those individually, and then really just jump backwards and forwards onto the platform to look at things in more detail. So as usual, I'm doing this today with Capital.com. So to find out more about Capital.com, to have access to the charts I use, go to the Capital.com website or download their app from the App Store, and you can view all of the stuff that I'm viewing today on there. And you can open a demo account, open a real account. You can trade really small if you want to, if you're new to trading, or trade a bit bigger. So it's all Capital.com's platform today. Right, so let's have a look at, very briefly, the important stuff for next week. Clearly, lots happened during the week for financial markets, but on Monday we've got the OPEC meeting, so the oil-producing nations. The expectation is for more cuts to be announced for OPEC, or to continue with the cuts that they've got at the moment. So clearly that's going to have an impact on the price of oil. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Tuesday, we've got the Australian interest rate decision in the early hours of the morning. So that could be interesting. And then European inflation, Tuesday morning, Europe time. So again, that can have an impact, obviously, on the euro. And then the big one for next week is non-farm payrolls. So we're going to be doing a live stream next week, this time, next Friday, from about 1:15 UK time next Friday. And again, if you're subscribed, you'll get a warning about that 30 minutes before we start. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could click on subscribe on YouTube, you'll get notified of all the stuff that we do. And if you click the alarm bell, you get the alerts when we do something new. So we normally do 3 to 4 videos a week. We did, I think the last video we put up on the YouTube channel was our, which one was it? It was the gold video, wasn't it? So if you go to our channel, we put up regular content during the week. The last video was gold yesterday. It's a really popular gold. I'm surprised how popular it is, but we've had 40,000 views on that one. So it is a really popular market, gold and silver. So we did that yesterday, and I think I put an order in on that video. So we'll take a look at that, because it's lurched lower again today, gold. So I think it's a really interesting market. But so that's the big things to watch next week. Friday's the big one. US unemployment, first Friday of every month. So we'll see. So we'll do a live stream next Friday on that. But let's start things off and have a look at these markets. Let's start off with stock markets. So I think we've seen another broadly positive week for stock markets. Of course, because we had US Thanksgiving yesterday, we're seeing a fairly quiet end to the week because of Thanksgiving, but it doesn't stop, I don't think, the overall positive momentum There's some relief at the beginning of the week as President Trump accepts the transition to Joe Biden should begin. So I think that was something of a relief for investors. And if you follow, we're going to have a look at the S&P now. US stock markets are at or near all-time highs. The Dow hit 30,000, for example, for the first time this week. So let's take a look at US stocks. So here we go. This is the S&P 500 since March of this year, the March lows. And I think if there's only one market you follow, or one stock market you follow, then the S&P 500 is definitely the market to follow. So this is where we are. I should say, of course, if you have any questions or anything else you want to look at, just put it in the comments. I'm keeping an eye on the comments. So if you have anything we want to have a look at, just put them in there. But here's the S&P. I think it's been interesting. We had clearly this massive run off the lows in March. Eventually moves out to fresh all-time highs in August of this year. Last week of August, all-time highs. Then hits that all-time high in early September, and we're like broadly sideways since then. We had, if I zoom in a bit, we had this crazy spike the 9th of November. You can see the spike. This is a daily candle that we're looking at here. So the market runs all the way up, but ends up closing. It closed positive on the day, but closed well off the highs. That was the first vaccine news we had, and now it feels like every couple of days we get new news about vaccine from that. And then the market has sort of pushed higher since then, but we haven't taken out this sort of vaccine spiky high. So we've got a market that's positive, but we have pushed above the old high, all-time high from September. So I am definitely still a buyer on dips in this market, but we haven't got the same sort of momentum that we had before. But it's still positive. You can't argue with this sort of momentum at the moment. The market is overbought. If you look on the 10-day RSI down here, we've been overbought since early November, really, on the S&P. So it could definitely weather a sell-off, but I'd still want to be a buyer on dips. I'm not quite sure really what else we could say about stock markets at the moment. Here's the hourly chart. You can see it's been pretty flat since the 8th of November, but lots of good support from 3,500 through to about 3,560. Let's flip this over to the Dow. Then we'll have a look at the Nasdaq after that. So the Dow. Let's bring that up. So there's our Dow chart. So there's the Dow hitting 30,000 a couple of days ago. Traded up to 30,200, and it's still positive. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who think stock markets are overvalued, but I think they've also been saying that all the way up. And I think it's expensive, I think, to go against the trend like this. Nasdaq 100. There's the daily chart. The Nasdaq's strong today, so the Nasdaq hit highs in September, but was setting fresh all-time highs from back in June, back here, and then like the S&P has been a little bit sideways since September. So the big level to watch. See if we can break 12,500 for those early September highs. But still positive. Stock still positive. I think for now it's difficult to argue with that sort of momentum. So for me, for my own trading, I'm definitely still a buyer of dips on stocks, and I think it's only if we take out these lows. We're looking at the Nasdaq now, but the same for the S&P. If we take out the September lows, do we have to worry? I think about a much deeper sell-off. So stock market's a bit boring, but overall still positive. Now gold. Gold has been it's been an exciting week, I think, for gold. Let's bring up the chart and have a look. Someone said my gold stop loss was hit this week. No, it hasn't. I've got an order in this week to buy gold, but the stop hasn't. The stop was hit on crude oil. I'll talk about that when we look at oil. But I've got an order in here. There's the video from yesterday. 1750 is my order to buy. I must admit, I did it yesterday on the video because I think it's always good to try and set a trade up. But I'd still quite happily sit on my hands given what gold has done today. But let's just go back to the PowerPoint for gold, then we'll jump on the chart. So gold trades to a 4-month low. Silver is weak, but it is still holding above recent support. And I think what we're seeing here, I think it's a few things. We had that massive run in gold and silver in July, August, and then have been giving back ground since then. Pretty boring. And then it's really, gold in particular has really sold off this week. And I think there's a few things here. There's the progress of the vaccines again. You know, I said it does feel like at the moment, every few days, we get new news about a vaccine. And this transition, I think, from the Trump administration to the president-elect Biden, means that investors are shunning lower risk assets. You know, investors feel comfortable with risk, and they've been, you know, and I think clearly in times like that, the likes of gold and silver get hit. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at the chart. I think gold's the interesting one here. If you've been watching the videos that we do on gold for a while, you know, I always start off with this really longer term trend on gold. It's from August 2018, and we've been in this trend, and it came back to the trend line, near the trend line in March, on the sell-off in March. And then, of course, it went from 1450 to about 2075 in about 5 months. So we saw this massive run up in gold. And I think a bit like Bitcoin, we'll talk about Bitcoin as well in a minute. You know, we have plenty of people, I'm sure, who got sucked in, who saw this market running away. And I think the problem is, if you see a market running away, you have the FOMO, you have the fear of missing out. And I think plenty of people, I'm sure, bought into this strength. The market continued to push higher. Then, of course, we've drifted, you know, and it looked like it was building a base ahead of 1840. And then over the last few days, we've really lurched lower. So for me at the moment, I would still, as with stock markets, you know, you can't argue with the trend. The major trend on gold is still up, but clearly it's under a lot of pressure at the moment. I would still be sitting it out, although saying that, I do have an order in for the video we did in at 1750 with a stop at 1650. Let's see if that gets filled this week. But I do think we have seen, you know, something of a shift in sentiment clearly over the last week of gold. I think we will see gold back above 2000 at some point soon. At some point, maybe not soon. But I'd rather sit on my hands and wait things out and see where things bottom, you know, which is why it's really important to have a strategy when trading. And I think most people don't have a strategy. They buy in blindly, hoping it's going to carry on going in that direction. And when it reverses like this, you know, people get their fingers burned. So I think in the short term, the risk is for a bit more weakness in the gold price. But I do think where it gets interesting, which is why I set that trade up this week, you know, we have this area just down here. If I just pick up on this, so from April through to June, where we just saw it sort of knocking around from 1660 to 1750 before taking off. So I think, you know, it could well get interesting if we see gold pull back into this zone, and I'd expect things to calm down a little bit. So I don't have a trade on the gold at the moment. I'd be happy to wait it out and see what happens down here. You know, see what happens in this area. So I think we will see it perhaps move a bit lower next week, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this zone here. So I would be in no hurry to be a buyer just yet, but maybe middle of the next week, if it's stopped making new lows, if we've stopped selling off like we are now, perhaps that's the time to buy. So I think we could get a chance at better prices. So I do have the order in at 1750 with a stop at 1650. But if I was watching it every day, I'd just sit there and see if it. No, I bet Peter Schiff isn't very happy at all. And wait and see what happens. You know, I think the thing to understand is, you know, we do these videos very regularly on the markets we cover, and I always like to do a trade in the video just to sort of put my money where my mouth is and illustrate what I think are the big levels to watch in the market. But I think if on gold we do a video maybe every 2 weeks, you know, so I've got 15 minutes every 2 weeks to put a trade on for this account. But I think if you can sit there and watch it every day, for me now, I'd rather sit there and watch it the next couple of days and see if we start to form a base somewhere down here. So I think there will be plenty of time to buy in, personally, I think, for the next move up. because for now at least it's clearly still weak, the price of gold. But it's been really interesting. I talked in the video that went out yesterday or the day before, I talked about this 1800 level. And I said if you were really aggressive, somewhere to put your stop was the other side of 1800. But I think we recorded it on, was it Tuesday? And I said it's only been one day, and it's taken it out today. Bang! I think there were lots of stops just below 1800. So let's see. I think the risk is it's going to push lower, but I would not be going short. I'd still personally be looking for a buy in gold, and I think this is the zone to watch. This whole, after it broke up to new highs for the recovery here and spends a bit of time knocking around, I think this 1650 to 1750 is the zone to watch. So I think it's got a lot more interesting again, gold. So let's see. Let's see what happens next week. And silver. What's silver done today? Let's have a quick look on the dailies on silver. I mean, silver is a bit different to gold in terms of if we talk about price action, because silver is still above those lows from September at what, 2150, that sort of area. So for me, that does tie in with gold as well. I think next week could be a really interesting one for gold and silver, but I'd want to see both of them stop sliding, on a daily basis. Forget about the short-term chart. Let's at least have one day where they stop going down. Yeah, so I think sit on your hands for both of these, but I think they could well, or I would be doing that, but I think they could well be opportunities going into next week. Let's see what happens, but we will update this. And clearly, if you're subscribed to the channel, which is free of charge, you'll see the updates. But I think, again with silver, I think this is a buying opportunity, but I want to see it stop going down first. I don't want to be the one who catches, the falling knife, because again, in silver, that's a big move in silver today. From when was it? 1 o'clock today, from $23.20, it lost $1 pretty much in under an hour. So. And clearly, I think we're probably seeing quite low volume trade today because it's the day after Thanksgiving, so Black Friday. So it's a bit of a strange day anyway. But it'd be interesting to see if these markets can bottom next week. See what happens. Next one, Bitcoin. As much as I hate talking about Bitcoin, clearly it's been incredible. The last couple of months in Bitcoin. We'll take a look at it in a minute. So it trades within a few $100s of the all-time high this week. So the all-time high from is it January or December? January 2018 or December 2017. We'll see it in a minute. Then, of course, drops $3,000 in less than 2 days. Have we seen the top again in crypto? Let's have a look. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. I've said before, I think we do have a trade running on Bitcoin at the moment. Oh, actually, no, I've come out of it. Oh, the trade's been closed. Hang on a second. So we did have an open position. Hang on a sec. Let's try and see what it was. We did have an open position on Bitcoin, and it got closed. Here it is. So what was that? For about £550. It was the most recent trade closed on Bitcoin in there. So I had been long Bitcoin. Hang on, let me bring up the chart. Sorry, I'm just struggling on a Friday night. So here's the move in Bitcoin. Absolutely incredible, really. Going from October, about 10,000, to 19,500 almost. So really close to those December 2017 highs. And I did say, I think the last time we looked at Bitcoin, that we just should be aware that there could be a whole load of people who bought in the major hype for Bitcoin in the last quarter of 2017 and have sat on losses for the last 3 years, who are only too happy to offload their Bitcoin for a small profit after sitting on it for 3 years. And I think that's, there's an element of what we've seen there with Bitcoin. We've seen it, come off the last couple of days from 19.5, traded as low as 16,170 yesterday. So that's a massive move. So I think it's interesting, but I also think I'd still be looking to be a buyer. It wouldn't surprise me if it had another look at those highs at some point. Again, I wouldn't necessarily want to be a buyer just yet, but I think it's an interesting one to watch next week. What's this guy? It's got some nutcase. I'm going to hide that. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if next week we see a bit more stability come into Bitcoin. So let's look at things in a bit more detail. But again, it does illustrate. This is why I say in the past I don't really like Bitcoin as a market, because I think Bitcoin sucks in lots of people who've never traded before, and then you have a market that can move. What is it? Almost 20% in a couple of days, 15% in a couple of days, and people will just get blown up on Bitcoin. I suppose an aggressive strategy here, if you really wanted to be a buyer here, and actually, if I had to trade gold or Bitcoin at these levels, I think I'd be tempted with the Bitcoin trade, is to be a buyer now at 16, wherever it is, 16,760, with a stop the other side of, is it yesterday's low? Yesterday's low. Yesterday's low is 16,167. Perhaps we'll do that. Perhaps we'll do that trade because we don't have any Bitcoin trades on. But I suppose that's a really aggressive trade, because if it starts selling off below yesterday's low, I'd want to be out. So let's do that. Let's do that for a small amount of risk, just to spice things up a bit. So the market's 16,800. Yesterday's low was 16,150. Let's say I'm going to go the other side of 16. So I'm going to go 15,900 for a stop. And you can trade fractional Bitcoin with us. So let's go 0.15 of a Bitcoin for 100 quid risk on a Friday night. Here we go. So I'm going to buy where the market is now and put in my stop loss. The other side of you can see actually how quickly the market did bounce back from 16,000. So I'm a buyer, but if it breaks 16,000, I'm getting out. So let's click on buy. There we go. We bought it. So I think Bitcoin's interesting. So I think even though we've seen a sharp reversal and the break of that trend line, it'd be an interesting one to watch next week to see if we see more buyers come back in, because it's very rare that markets just reverse straight away and that's it. But clearly we have the longer term trend line coming in about 12,000 on Bitcoin. So I think for me, it's still a really interesting market to watch from here. Let's see what happens. But I do think people get emotionally attached to Bitcoin, and talk about it being at 100,000 or 500,000 or whatever. It's a bit like Tesla. I've seen it. We'll have a look at Tesla, but it's Tesla. I mean, Tesla is not as bad as Bitcoin, but again, I think some of the shareholders in Tesla who think it's going to go, maybe it will go to the moon, but I think it's just a market like anything else. Now, crude oil. I did a video this week. I've never had so much feedback about a video I did on crude oil, because I got stopped out in a day for the trade I did on crude oil. And there were quite a few comments saying, oh, what happened here, da, 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 da. And I think, well, that just happens now and again. Occasionally trades will go wrong really quickly. And the trade in crude oil went wrong really quickly this week. But that's trading. That's unfortunately, that's how trading goes sometimes. So we'll look at crude oil in a minute, but let's just talk about what's been going on. It's been an incredibly volatile month for crude oil. It's traded at West Texas crude has traded as low as $34 and as high as $46. Massive swings. It's like 30-40% swings on the month in crude oil. And again, I think it's this the vaccine news is driving hope of for the economy next year. So that's definitely helped. We have this OPEC meeting on Monday of next week. It's going to be really interesting, I think, because they're expected to extend the current cuts in supply. So they're going to not go back and sort of open up the taps. They're expected to keep cuts the same. But let's take a look at it. So I did a video on Monday, which would have been about here, maybe. And I was looking to sell short, and I was selling short. It was a good trade. It just didn't work out. It just wasn't a profitable trade. So I was selling short here somewhere with a stop above the old highs, which is a really logical place to have a stop. And the market blasted through. And that happens. Occasionally you get wrong, you'd be wrong very quickly on a trade. So the market blasted through, took out my stop, and I took a loss on the trade. But it's quite a major break, this. We've seen in the summer crude oil pushed up to, where was it, $44 a barrel, and then sold off, and then eventually traded as low as 34 the beginning of November. And here we are now at 45. I have to say, I think it's a little bit of a crazy market at the moment, crude oil. To have, for a major asset like oil to swing about 40% in a month is a little bit ridiculous. And if I had to do a trade now, I'd have to be a buyer because we've broken out to these highs. I think there are a couple of ways of trading it. But for me, when a market breaks out like this through what has been a pretty long-term level for that market since the summer, I'd have to be a buyer really up here. I didn't think we'd be, and I still don't think we're going to see oil at $50 anytime soon. But it's only $4 away from it at the moment. So for me, the break is positive. The trend off the November lows, so beginning of November, crude oil was at a, 5-month low beginning of November, and now we're at a 8-month high. So it's a massive turnaround on the month. So for me, I'd be a buyer. The RSI down here is overbought, very overbought, but the market is still strong. And I suppose if I really had to buy it here, where would you put your stop loss? I think you could go the other side of that breakout level, the other side of here, $44 would be one place. An aggressive stop would be under these most recent lows at 44.50. But it's a really positive move by crude this week, and it shows you the importance of having stops. I can't remember where my stop was. Let's have a look. It's at 45.72 now. So if we look at trade close, where did I get stopped? So I got stopped on the 24th of November. So it was the next day after 24th of November at 3 in the afternoon. Let's have a look at that. 24th of November. Okay, so I got stopped on this move here, yeah? And I think I got stopped at 45, and the market is 72 cents. So for me, every trade that we do, if you've watched any of the videos that we do, all of these different trades in here, all have stop losses on them. And the idea is to risk a relatively small amount of money. And when I'm wrong, like on that trade there, we lost £250. But when it goes right, like some of these older trades here, like the euro and the pound, and some of the Bitcoin stuff that we did, is to have a profit that's a multiple of the risk, which is that's the whole idea of having stop losses, is to manage the risk and get out when things turn around. But I think it's a major break this week for oil through those highs. We'll see what next week brings. We'll see what, particularly this OPEC meeting on Monday. See what that brings. But let's see. I think it should be an interesting week next week for the oil price as well. Let's talk about currencies. It's been, I think, a bit. We'll have a look at the euro in a minute, but let's talk about the dollar first of all. So the US dollar index is still trading near a 2.5-year low. So the dollar has been weak this week and remains weak. It's been a positive week for the pound against the dollar, pushing back to 2020 highs for the pound against the dollar. The euro dollar as well, I just looked on another screen there, is also gaining. So I think it could be, again, another interesting finish to the year. Will we see new highs for these two before the year ends? So let's start off by looking at the dollar index. So I've mentioned this a few times, the dollar index. It's a really interesting one, the dollar index, because it is the US dollar against a basket of other currencies. So it's the dollar against, you can see it here, the euro, the yen, the pound, the Canadian dollar, the Swedish krona, the Swiss franc, blah, 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 blah. So all those different markets. And look where it is. Look where it is at the moment. So in March of this year, the dollar index touched 104 and then sold off all the way down to 91.72. And look where we are now. We are, even as we're doing this thing tonight, we are right back to those lows. Okay, so if we saw a bit more weakness from here for the dollar index, if we saw another 10 cents or so for the dollar index, that would be a new 2.5-year low for the dollar index. And why it's interesting is we're on this major trend line. So it really is bounce or break time for the US dollar. And at the moment, it's just not rallying. It's still a really weak market, which brings us to pound against the dollar. So here's pound against the dollar. So it's been under a little bit of pressure the last couple of days, but pound against, I think there's some trades on this account anyway, down here somewhere for pound against the dollar. So buying at 129.48 and 128.47, and the market's 133 at the moment. I would still be a buyer on weakness for pound against the dollar. I mean, clearly with the pound, we still have the Brexit uncertainty hanging over the market, but it's a trend that's still up. And I think if we see perhaps a bit of weakness into next week, perhaps we see the buyers come back in. But I would be, if we saw any major sell-off for the pound, I'd still be tempted to be a buyer of that. And if we take a look at the euro, this is the euro against the dollar. It's been a really boring couple of months. You can see it here, euro dollar. So we've got a 20-day moving average on here, the RSI down here, and look what the price has been doing, just really sideways. This price here, early September, was the highest the euro had been since May 2018. So we had a 2-year plus high for the euro, and it's been sideways since then. But next week, will we see it break out? So it's only 60 cents or so below that high. So I think even though we're getting to the time of the year when things tend to slow down, I think it could still be a really interesting September. I've got these old euro trades on the account from ages ago, one of them from the 27th of May. And they've done good profits. They've made, like, this one has made 7 times the risk. This one is about equal on the risk. And I wonder if we get a breakout next week for the euro, we could really see quite a bit of strength into the end of the year. So it is interesting at the moment, after a fairly dull few weeks in the foreign exchange markets. Maybe things are starting to pick up again next week. So let's see what happens. And then I'm gonna jump into the questions in a second, but just a quick advert. Don't forget, if you don't have an account with us, you can open an account. Go to Capital.com to open an account. You can download the app. If you're in the UK or Ireland, you can do spread betting, which is tax-free. Otherwise, you just trade normal contracts for difference and FX, those usual things. So if you go to Capital.com, clearly that helps support us doing all these videos and all this sort of stuff. And I think that the big benefit of trading with us is, particularly if you're new to it, you can trade small. So if I go to Crude Oil, if I want to trade 2,000 barrels of crude, I can. But if I only want to trade 0.1 of a barrel of crude, I can. Okay, so you can make the level of risk wherever you're comfortable with. So I think particularly if you're new to trading and you want to have sensible levels of risk, which I always recommend, then with us, with Capital.com, you can. Let's take a look at some of these questions. So I did see Tesla come up. I do have some shares in Tesla, not in this account. Actually, there is a trade in this account. I bought some with my son just before he went to university in September, and I said, whatever the profit is at the end of the year, you can have that as a bit of a Christmas present. But we actually ended up buying them here at about $4.50. So we bought 2. So we've finally moved into profit just after holding them for 3 months. It's moved into profit. But to get to the chart for Tesla, you can't argue with it, can you? You cannot argue with the strength. We've had a breakout this week, finally, through these old highs. These old highs were at 470. And the market's broken out. We're at 584 now. Even today, Tesla's making new highs. I think it's difficult to trade something like this because the volatility, a bit like Bitcoin, not that it's like Bitcoin, but the volatility is so massive. If I was a buyer now, where would my stop go? Well, probably the other side of these lows from late October, which is the other side of 380. That's a massive stop. It's $200 away from where the price is trading now. It's a 30% plus stop loss, which I think is a ridiculous stop loss. So for me, I do think it's going to go higher, but I'd rather buy a pullback on Tesla. The only problem is if you wait for a pullback and the pullback never happens, and you're sat on the sidelines, aren't you, while the stock is racing away. So you can't argue with the momentum for Tesla. The fact it's at all-time highs again today is positive. It's just a tricky one, I think, with this level of volatility. I suppose if we were day trading it, if we were looking on the really short-term chart, here's the hourly chart for Tesla. And look at the move here. I suppose this was when it was going to go. It was announced, I think, it was going in the S&P, wasn't it? So it's going to make up the S&P index. So it's a massive move there. Great trend, really great short-term trend. So I think if you were trading it off the hourlies, for me, I could be a buyer now, and I'd put my stop probably the other side of 540, yesterday's low. But that's a much shorter-term chart, clearly, isn't it? But it's been a great trend. And I think there is a Tesla trade, I think, in this account. Here we go. There's a Tesla trade there from the 14th of September, buying 3.3 at 400. So clearly that's in profit. So it's a crazy one, Tesla, isn't it? But for me, on the dailies, the stop would just be too wide. But I do think it's going to go higher. Clearly, nothing today is financial advice. It's just my opinion. But it's interesting, isn't it? Tesla. And someone's put Tesla bubble. Tesla bubble, but it's a bubble where you'd have made a lot of money off it this year, isn't it? It's like Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's ridiculous, but it's got up 90% in the last 2 months. Who's going to say no to a 90% profit? Let's see, what else have we got? Bitcoin will explode in 2021. Let's see. See what happens. What else have we got? Could we have a look at Pfizer and Facebook? Yeah, Facebook's an interesting one. But let's look at Pfizer. Of course, the one of the coronavirus vaccine companies, isn't it? There's the spot. It's interesting. It's an interesting move, this. It's an interesting bit of market psychology, this. There's a really famous market saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. Because once the news is out there, the news is out there. And that looks to be definitely the case in Pfizer when they announced the vaccine. So the price was trading around $36 a share. I think it's dollars, isn't it? It's a US share. $36 a share. They announced they've got the vaccine. Trades to 42. So almost a 20% jump. And what's it done since? Sell off. It actually went all the way back to where it was before then. So again, I suppose an aggressive trade based off the price action. Be a buyer now with stops under these recent lows at 35.80 is one idea, I suppose, for a trade, isn't it? But it's pretty boring, really, isn't it? Look at that. That is a boring market. Apart from a little bit of short-term excitement on the vaccine, it's done nothing for a good couple of years, Pfizer, hasn't it? Which is an interesting one. But I suppose there's an argument for being a buyer now with the stop the other side of that. But that was the trade. In hindsight, that was the trade. When they came out with the vaccine news, sell short into the massive move higher. But that's an interesting one. But it's not one that looks very exciting in the moment, I'd say, but arguably looking to be a buyer. So look at Facebook. So Facebook, of course, like lots of stocks, great run since the March lows. The March lows were about $138 a share, so more than doubled into August. And then a bit sideways since then, isn't it? A little bit sideways, a little bit dull. Just a bit dull, I think. I suppose like the Nasdaq. I mean, clearly these tech stocks led the market higher. It's just a bit boring, isn't it? The recent range is 310-ish down to 245, and we're pretty much in the middle of the range. So I think it's a bit boring, to be honest, Facebook at the moment. A very exciting one. But if we did sell off back towards these lows, then there's an argument for being a buyer. Let's see what happens. Pull up the Ripple chart, XRP chart. Let's have a look at that. I have not looked at this chart in about 3 years, I'm reckoning. Let's have a look at Ripple. Let's have a look at... God, that is still well off. That's mild. It's interesting, isn't it? It's well off still. It's I had absolutely no idea what this was going to be. Off its 20... Hang on, that's 2000. I'm getting confused. I'm looking at completely... How did that flip over to crude oil? I thought that was Ripple. Hang on a second, let's do that again. Ripple, US dollars. Bring that up, that's more like it. That looks like more of a crazy crypto chart. It's interesting, isn't it? That its 2018 high was 3.3, and it's still, how far below that is it? It's still about 85% below its 2018 high. I really hate these crypto markets for trading. I don't. The application of them, fair enough, but from a trading market, I think they're absolute lunatic markets. I really do. Ripple goes from 0.4 on the 22nd of November, doubles by the 24th of November, and then pretty much halves again by the 26th of November. It's just not a normal market, is it? But again, I suppose the aggressive trade here, we've seen, like Bitcoin over the last couple of days, support from about 45, isn't it? Be a buyer, and then I would bail out if it broke much below 45. But it's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if we've seen the moves already in crypto, and it just goes boring again from now. Let's see what happens the next couple of weeks. But there's Ripple. Let's see what else have we got. A lot of Bitcoin, bit of Bitcoin chat. Drillers, rig and bore. Let me have a look at those. Rig. Oh, we don't cover rig, I don't think. It's not Transocean, is it? Yes, it is Transocean. Let's have a look at Transocean. That's weird, isn't it? For me, too volatile. Again, it's gone from $1 in mid-November to $2.50, and then back to $2 currently. I just think with some of these smaller stocks, for me, it's just, I can see why people like them, but they're just far too volatile. Anything that can double or halve in a day or a couple of days is a little bit crazy for me. And I don't know why it popped higher. If it did pop higher on that oil move, I think perhaps that's what drove it higher. But it's not following oil higher, is it? You could say from here. So I think for me, I've got no idea, but I'd probably go short. Is what I'd say. That maybe it's overdone it a bit on the oil side. Let's see. Bitcoin feels like gambling, and everyone just throws coins at it. I agree with you. I think it's a great market in terms of volatility. It's a great market in terms of trend. Bitcoin for showing trends and showing how a market can go crazy in both directions. But no, it's just, I think it's even more of a casino than perhaps other markets are. Let's see. Bitcoin 300K, someone's saying, okay. Dollar index, we looked at the dollar index. What else have we got? Gold, we had a look at gold. Copper, I think copper has been moving higher. Copper's interesting. We picked up on, copper's had quite a move today. I think I did say I have got some trades on copper somewhere else. But that's a really bullish move by copper. Great trend in copper off those lows. I mean, it's no Bitcoin. It's not making me 90% every 2 months, copper. But a move out to, this is multi-year highs today, copper. So copper is back to where it was in 2013. Interesting. So copper's had a big move. Great trend in copper. I'd probably, again, rather buy a pullback in copper from here. But any weakness, for me at least, still looks like a buying opportunity for copper. Let's see. Let's see what happens. What else have we got? It seems to be, what did someone say there? Sorry. How do you think about trading Bitcoin on a 1-minute chart? Absolute lunacy, but that's great. I think it would be like driving a Lamborghini after 3 bottles of wine, trading Bitcoin on a 1-minute chart. That's my own personal opinion. I don't recommend any of those approaches, but I just think it's crackers. Absolutely crackers. Hang on, let's see. There's lots of questions coming in, so I'll carry on going through the questions and try to get to yours. Sounds okay. Natural gas. There's a natural gas video going out tomorrow night. So I recorded it yesterday, and it's an interesting one, natural gas. So natural gas, I have had some mixed fortunes with natural gas over the last year. I've had lots of losing trades on natural gas, but I think I'm just about up overall because I eventually did end up catching a chunk of this move higher. And I think the move recently is really interesting. Again, it's a pretty volatile market. Natural gas touched $3.40 in October, end of October, and it's traded as low as $2.60. So it's moved 25% natural gas. But I do wonder, I think the video that goes up tomorrow night is I'm quite tempted to be a buyer down here of natural gas because we've still got arguably this recovery trend going on since June and July, coming in at 240, and we've got loads of support from 240 to 260. So I think it's weird considering it is the end of the year. I think December is going to be a really interesting month because lots of markets are getting near big levels. So I think 240 to 260 is interesting for gas. So we're having, you can see, a big down day today, relatively speaking, in natural gas. But I think it'd be an interesting one to watch next week. But the video that will get uploaded tomorrow night on Saturday will give a bit more insight into this. So we'll see. We'll see. What pot stocks will benefit the most from USA legalization? I've got no idea. I don't know anything about marijuana stocks, so I've got no idea. But perhaps we should do that. Perhaps in the new year, we'll take a look. We'll take a look at some of those stocks. What else have we got? Oh, NIO. NIO is the other. It's the electric car stock, isn't it? Incredible. Another one. I mean, clearly Tesla's gone ballistic. Great trend again on NIO. We did cover these in a video a couple of months ago. And, I mean, you can't argue with that trend. Again, the question is, it's gone from, in November, $35, beginning of November, to $54 now. Would you buy it now? Who knows? I mean, I'd rather buy a pullback. But the risk is you don't get the pullback. And if you'd missed it at 35 in November, did you sit there watching it all the way up? I don't know. I think I have a real problem trading these real strong runaway markets. So for me, I'll probably be sitting on my hands waiting for it to sell off and see if we get a better entry point. But you can't argue with the strength in those sort of markets. What else have we got? How secure is the FSA protected 85k on a capital account? It is secure. In the UK, we have the protection scheme. So if you have money in a savings account or in a bank, your money is guaranteed. So because it's guaranteed by the government and the regulator. So if you had more than that, you're not covered. But yes, if you have the FCSS protection on an account, you are covered. It's a good question though. I would never put more than what I'm covered for in a trading account. It's a really sensible thing to do because you never know, do you? And if you don't need the money in there for margin, why leave money sloshing around? But we are regulated by the FCA in the UK, so so you have the usual coverage that you have with other brokers. Good question. What else do we have? We had that Bitcoin 1 minute chart, NIO. My dad sold NIO and bought himself a diesel BMW 5 Series with the profits. Nice one. Okay, what else have we got? How low could the dollar index go? Good question. I must admit, I do have on another account, I'm long the dollar index. I've been long for ages because I did think it was going to build a base down here. And for a while, it looked like it was. But it's going to be really interesting, I think, if the dollar starts breaking below those September lows at 91.72. There's an awful lot of downside back to the 2018 lows. Ultimately, down to 88, so maybe 300 points from here. But I think it's going to be a really interesting market to watch next week. Let's see what happens. But it would definitely help the euro, dollar, and the pound position. Quick, we're up £2.20 on the Bitcoin trade. Let's close the trade quickly. But no, a weaker dollar next week would help those. So I think it's going to be a really interesting one to have a look at. OPEC meeting, good or bad for oil? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because this OPEC meeting next week, everyone is expecting them to extend the current price cuts. So you could argue that the price of oil has rallied this week because of this OPEC meeting on Monday. So it could be another case of buy the rumor, sell the news. If OPEC announces on Monday, we're sticking with the cuts on oil as everyone expected, and the oil price doesn't go up, that could be an interesting short on oil because everyone knows, okay, it's all in the price now. So I would watch how oil reacts on Monday to the OPEC meeting. When we do the live stream next Friday for the payrolls, we'll take a look back at it. But let's see what happens. So I'm going to go on for another 10 minutes because I know it's Friday evening, but we've been on this now. You've all been on it for 50 minutes, and I know people's attention. So we'll give it another 10 minutes, then we'll wrap things up. What's your best leading indicator for SPY? Well, the S&P, I would say, for the S&P, I've got a long trade on the S&P at the moment. Just, I'm a big fan of just trading the price. Trade the price action. Trade with the trend. Look at obvious things. Look at the S&P here. Look on this screen here. So the lows I bought the S&P, I think about here somewhere the other week. But the lows on November the 19th, the S&P trades down to 35.47, comes down to it again on the 20th, comes down to it again nearly on the 23rd, and bang, away it goes. Yeah, trade the price action. Look at it here. 25th of November trades down to 36.20. 26th of November trades down to 36.20, and today we're at 36.40. So I'm a massive fan of trading price and looking for, like back here, previous levels to be tested on the S&P. I think you can end up making your life far too complicated when you're trading. When you end up with so much stuff on your charts, you can't actually see what the price is doing. So I would say stick to price action. Yeah, you don't need a million different indicators on your chart to analyze a market. I am a big fan of just focusing on the price action, which makes it very boring. It would make for a very boring video if I did that. But I've been trading for almost 25 years now, and price action is the most important stuff. It's not this stuff down here, although people like this stuff down here. Price action is what's important. There we go. Okay, what else have we got? Any plans for trailing stop loss feature? Good question. It is coming apparently, and I think it would be a massive benefit because I know the trades that I do on this account, if we never look at that market again for a long time, I forget to move the stop loss. So having a trailing stop loss would be really useful. So it's a good question. I will have a chat with the development team next week and see where we are on that because I think that'd be a really good idea and we need to have it, or would be useful. It'd be useful to have it. I heard there are new trading restrictions on crypto. Yes, there are. I think they come in from next year. So the UK regulator, the FCA, is banning trading on cryptocurrencies from next year. So, which I think is a bit of a shame, just as things were getting interesting. But they're the regulator, so they decide. So that's going to happen. So you can still trade it for a bit. What else? AIRBUS or overall industry? How do you feel about it? I don't know. I suppose, well, clearly at the moment, it's really tough, isn't it, given what everyone's been through this year. Here's the daily chart for AIRBUS. So there's clearly the big sell-off. This is AIRBUS from 139 down to 50. Massive slide in the share price. It's broken out recently. I suppose it's a bit of a contrarian trade. You could be a buyer. Breakout. The breakout looks pretty good so far. I think it's an interesting one to watch, AIRBUS. Let's take a look at Boeing, because clearly they had the problem of the travel industry, plus, of course, the problem with their MAX jet. I can't remember what it was called. It's a little bit more sideways Boeing, isn't it? It's moved to the top of the range. That AIRBUS one is interesting, though, to watch next week, given the fact it's broken out. What else have we got? How do you find promising stocks? It's a good question. I mean, I don't really look at individual stocks for myself, but I think one way is to, if you have software that can filter stocks that perhaps are making a new 3-month high or a 3-month low. So for me, I'd always start off looking at something that perhaps is moving to an extreme, is one way of doing it if you're looking for stocks to trade. Or alternatively, just stick to a basket of stocks, trade stocks that move around. The likes of, we've looked at Tesla, we've looked at Facebook, Apple is another one, a little bit boring at the moment. So I'd say either have a filter to look for certain criteria in stocks, or stick to a basket of popular stocks. VRM. Okay, someone's asked for, a couple of people asked for VRM. What is VRM? VRM. We don't have it. We don't cover it on our platform. So I'm going to have to miss out on that one. I wonder what one that one. I'll have a look afterwards and see what stock that is. Let's see what other questions have we got. We looked at Neo, didn't we? What else have we got? Governments will make their own cryptocurrencies. Do you have a minimum stop loss allowed on trades with your firm? Good question. I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's say we wanted to do a trade on gold. I don't think there is a minimum. So let's say I want to buy 0.1 of gold. Perhaps there is a minimum. 1787 is where it is now. Could I go 1786? Yeah, I could do. So you can have the stop loss really tight. You know, I've never had a problem with the trades I do on here. And I think you don't want to set stop losses too tight because you'll get just knocked down in the normal volatility in the market. But I don't think we have too tight stop. I know gold is very bearish, but with this next incoming stimulus in the US and then maybe hyperinflation in the USA, gold might bounce back. It's true, because everyone is expecting a weaker US dollar, you know, because Mr. Joe Biden, assuming he becomes president, we're going to have more. We are expecting more stimulus, aren't we? Which should put pressure on the US dollar, and the US dollar is sliding today, but so is gold. So that is a bit weird. I don't understand it. I don't have an answer for it. You know why it's been this week. I do think gold will go. This is a buying opportunity for gold. I just wouldn't buy yet. But you're right. It doesn't really make that much sense, which is maybe a bit worrying actually, because you could think, well, if gold is going down when it's meant to be going up, or at least staying stable, what's it going to do if the dollar does rise from here? But we'll see. Let's see. I try not to second guess this stuff and just trade what's in front of me. So let's see what it is. What else have we got? FUV, someone's asked about. I don't know what that one is. We don't cover all stocks. We just tend to trade the most popular ones. Here we go. That, for me, that's another crazy one for me. So we went from, where did it go from? $6 in the middle of November to $20 and back to 13. I mean, I've got no idea what they do, and I'm sure they're a great company, but for me, stocks like that, they're just casinos, aren't they? And I think people get a lot of entertainment out of them. But for me, as a trader, I mean, what do you do? You know, when you've got a market that can swing around like that? It's great if you're in it early enough, isn't it? But I think for me, it's just a little bit crazy. I think a market like that. But if you're in it, good luck, and I hope it all worked out. Oh, it worked out well for you. Nikola. Oh, Nikola. Isn't that the company who got into a bit of trouble lately? Or am I confusing them with somebody else? No, it is the company, isn't it? Because I did have a short. In this very account, we did do a short in Nikola because wasn't there something with their accounts or their cars, electric car company again. Personally, I don't have a trade on it now. I wish I would. If I had to do a trade in it, I'd go short with a stop above that recent high. But that recent high again from 2 days ago is at $38, and the stock is at $27, $28 today. It's interesting, isn't it? Look at the mania we have around electric cars at the moment. Tesla at all-time highs, Neo going crackers, Nikola heading in completely opposite direction. And I think there was a bit of some sort of scandal, wasn't there, back here somewhere around Nikola. So for me, it's interesting. It's going in the wrong direction. So maybe long Tesla, short Nikola is the trade. Obviously, don't do that, but maybe that's one. Okay. Yes, I think Webcoin, you've done a very good description of what Nikola is there. We did cover Tesla a bit early on, so there will be a recording available of this as soon as I stop. You can watch and rewind back on the recording. Right, let's wrap things up there. So I think just to remind you, next week, the big things to watch next week, the OPEC meeting on Monday. Watch how oil reacts. If oil doesn't go up on the news, it could be an interesting short-term short. Then a bit of news on Tuesday, and then Friday's the big one. Non-farm payrolls on Friday. We'll do the live stream, so from 1:15 UK time, 2:15 European time, and whatever time that is in New York, 8:15 New York time. So again, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you can click on subscribe, click on the alarm bell, I'll click the like thing as well, because I'm here at 7:30 on a Friday night. If you click the like, it'd be really good, because it helps YouTube like our channel, and it's good for the subscriptions. But that's it really. Let me give you my contact details. So to find out more about Capital, go to Capital.com. Any questions, drop me an email. My email address is david.jones@capital.com. Obviously, I can't give financial advice, but anything, any general stuff, I'm more than happy to answer. If you go back through our channel, we do have educational videos on there about trading and the regular market videos during the week. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jones the Markets on Twitter. And you can follow Capital.com on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, open an account. If you don't have a trading account, or if you do have a trading account, open a trading account with us as well. Because we don't do these things just for the good of our health. But you can trade small. You can, particularly if you're new to trading, you can start trading small and learn how all of this stuff works. And you can download the app, and that's it. The trading software is Capital.com. Someone asks that every time I do a thing. It's Capital.com trading platform and trading software. So it's all in there. But we'll wrap things up there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we're putting this video out tomorrow night on natural gas. I think natural gas is an interesting one. That should go up 3 or 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, UK time. More videos next week, and then next Friday we'll do a live stream over the payrolls. But we will stop things there. Thanks for coming along. It's really, really good that people turn up to these sort of things, so I'm not talking to myself. And have a good weekend.